So hi everyone, hope you're doing really well. Welcome to this episode. We're going to talk about finding and researching your patch, your area, your gold mine. And this really comes from a conversation we had with one of our mentees. And he said, look, I invest here. I'm looking just to expand that circle a little bit, perhaps to a 25-minute drive from where I live currently. It's a bit further from where I currently invest. How should I go about researching the area, my patch, my gold mine? So here's some tips for you too. There's really three components to this. The first thing you want to look at is the condition of the area now. You want to then assess rents, and then you want to look at the area in the future, what is proposed for that particular area. So how to identify an area straight off? Typically, if you've watched any of these videos before, we tend to divide areas between 1 and 10, 10 being really expensive and 1 being really poor and crime ridden, and you're probably looking around about the 3-4 mark. So how do you find those? What's the characteristics of those sorts of areas? Typically terraced houses. There's a reason why we have a lot of terraced houses in our portfolio. It tends to be sort of working families. That's definitely our type of tenant we're going for. And they tend to gravitate, they can afford sort of the terraced street, the 2-bed, the 3-bed, perhaps a semi in certain areas, but that's typically what you're looking for. And the easiest way to sort of identify those is to go onto a map, get an Ordnance Survey map or Google Maps, and they tend to come in parallel streets with perpendicular roads joining them. So they look like sort of laddered streets. Find those sort of areas, find out where they are. Now, not all ladder streets are appropriate. You'll get some terraced houses, for instance, in some city centres. Let's take the extreme, let's take London, where you might be spending north of £1 million for a terraced house. So you've got to be careful, but you need to look for those terraced areas. Other indicators then, once you sort of find those patches of terraced houses, is you want to be looking at infrastructure. So you want to be looking at sort of the demographic, those shops and the local amenities that those sort of people frequent. And the indicators really are things like the cheaper or the older Lidl and Aldi's. They tend to target the poorer areas. Betting shops tend to abound in those sort of areas. Laundrettes tend to abound in those sort of areas. You also want an interesting one is where your fire stations are located, and also where historic fire stations are located. Go back, 10, 15, 20, even 25 years. Fire stations are located in areas where they're most likely going to be fires. Perhaps makes abundant sense. Again, you don't tend to find fire stations in affluent areas, because people who are sort of achieved that level of success don't tend to go around setting cars on fire or burning things in their own homes. It's just not how they conduct themselves. So fire stations are located where there are lots of fires, and that's lower end demographic is sort of the area. Again, now be selective. And the other one I'd always add in is chicken shops. That sounds funny, but chicken is one of the cheapest meats to purchase, and where you get local high streets, not town or city centres. Lots of chicken shops is can be an indicator of the sort of type of area you're going to be looking at. So that's sort of the area now. And then you want to assess, though, now you've found an area, is there demand? So you want to then go onto your portals. Let's take Rightmove, for example. Find the postcode of that area and say within 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 miles, sort of 1 mile, 3 miles is probably best. And then look at properties for rent, 3-bed, 2 and 3-bed, terrace and semi-detached properties, and see how many results come up. Let's say you get 50 results that come up for properties that are available to rent. And then click the filter that says include let agreed. And then you might get, a few more results. And what you want is a discrepancy, you want a disparity, you want a gap between the number of properties available to rent and the number of properties that have already gone. And you want most of them to be let agreed and only a few to remain. So let's say you have 50 properties available to rent, 45 of them are let agreed and 5 are available. It means lots of demand. 45 of them have already gone and 5 of them are remaining. So the demand's high. And that's sort of how you assess rent levels. The other thing you can do to assess rent for the area is call up the local estate agents, get a list of them, very easy to do on Google Maps. Call them up and say, look, I'm thinking of investing in the area. What sort of properties would you like more of to rent? So what have you got a shortage of? and they will say, look, we're looking for 3-bed terrace houses. We're absolutely crying out, we haven't got enough of them, or whatever it is. Call them all up, and you'll get a repeat message, a consistent message, and then you know that is what is in demand at the moment for tenants in that area. You've located the area, you've established there is tenant demand by looking at Rightmove and giving phone calls to lettings agents. And while you're on it, you might say, do you happen to know any landlords that want to exit the market who might be looking to sell? If you do, perhaps they can give us a call. And then you want to look at what's planned for the future of that area. And this is the jurisdiction of the local council. They will have what is called a local area development plan. And as I understand it, every council should have an area for how they're going to allocate funds for their area of jurisdiction. It's a fairly clunky document, but essentially it's a map with a key. And there's like probably, I don't know, the ones I've looked at, about 30 different keys, 30 different icons and colours and different pictures, all representing different things and how they're going to look after that area. So for instance, it might be that we're going to conserve this woodland. This is absolutely going to be a conservation area, so that's going to be protected. This industrial estate is going to be expanded this much. We've allocated this much for housing here and here and here. The town centre is going to be redeveloped here. And it will show you the area of which your investment patch you've just identified fits in, and it will show what's going to happen to it. So just make sure they're not about to go and do something ridiculous in the area that's going to probably have a negative impact upon housing demand or in terms of purchase and rental. But also look out for things that they are going to do, like they're going to add train stations or tram stops or whatever it might be, and just make sure that the future, next 5, 7, 8, 10 years has sensible plans in place that might add value to your area. And then it might increase the long-term capital appreciation of your asset if you buy it in that area. So for instance, one thing to look out for is local area development on the local area development plan is attribution to housing developments. We like to buy near where housing developments are going to happen. Because what tends to happen, big developers come in, they build 1,000 homes, we've got a couple of semis right by a big development. And then what happens after that is the roads tend to be done by the local council in the area and cleaned. And then you find local independent coffee shops and boutique flower shops and things pop up. And then big business tends to follow, shopping centres and so on and so forth, to supply that increased demand. And then you get additional bus routes and so on. So buying in an area that's up and coming, that other people are going to be spending money in your area is a really positive thing. So establish the type of house, 3 to 4, look at the criteria we've just mentioned a minute ago, assess tenant demand, make sure there is people actually having identified the area, identify there are people who want to live there by doing Rightmove and phone calls to lettings agents, and then make sure that there are sensible plans going forward by looking at the local area development plan from your local government website. So I hope those thoughts add to it. If you think I've missed stuff out, it's really important, and feel free to share those and drop your suggestions down below. I'm always interested in what other people's take might be. How would you assess your area and how do you identify areas? If you disagree, also let us know. It'll be interesting to hear a counter opinion. If you like this video and you found it helpful, then a thumbs up would be massively appreciated, please. And if you'd like to know more and understand what we're doing, then hit subscribe and join us and be part of our property investing family. From Beck and I and the family, thanks for watching and supporting the channel. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.